Hey everyone, this cooler could be a real lifesaver for gaming laptops if you're just like me right now in the middle of a heat wave. And this time it finally works with smaller 14-inch laptops like this Acer Swift X14 as well, which is a real hothead with its measly single fan system, and it greatly benefits from the new Llano V11 Pro. And today we are taking a closer look at it with real numbers and FPS improvements. Also, definitely let me know in the comments if your laptop runs hot and if you're already using laptop pads or coolers or something like that. Today's video is sponsored by Llano, which also sent over the V11 Pro for free, but they had no saying in the making of this video. And that fact also doesn't stop me from performing real-world benchmarks and giving you my real opinion. Now, the cooling performance is still impressive despite the V11 Pro being a bit smaller with a new fan design compared to something like the V12 and older models. And it's now quieter than ever before. So let's get into it.
This is Hubwood.
I reviewed two of Llano's earlier versions a while ago and was honestly blown away by how well they performed with the two gaming laptops that I tested them with. But yeah, they can get very loud if you use them at maximum and high speeds, which usually isn't necessary, but more on that later. This time, it's finally designed to work with laptops between 14 and 17.3 inches, and it won't work probably with smaller or much bigger ones. The basic and well-working principle once again remains the same. You know, the foam around the edges tries to seal off your laptop now, and then air is like forcefully pushed through the entire machine, creating some kind of a positive pressure inside of it that cools more than just the CPU and GPU, but you know, like all the parts inside of here. Llano now claims that the new V11 Pro is even quieter than before, and since I still have the V12 Ultra here, I can confirm that at their maximum speeds I measured 58 to 60 decibels for the 11V Pro and 68 to 72 decibels for the V12 Ultra, depending on whether a laptop is on top or not. Now, a difference of 10 decibels is much more than it sounds, because that actually means twice as loud. And you really can hear the difference. It's huge. Just hear for yourself. Now, I guess with the focus on smaller laptops, they downsized everything by a bit. The build quality and materials they used are still the same as before: black, hollow plastic, this time without the slightly rough texture. It still feels a bit cheap considering the price, also because it's so light. But I guess if it works and it's sturdy and stable, who cares? The button layout at the front is the same as before. You can power it on or off, adjust the RGB lighting, and use the scroll wheel here to manually adjust the fan speeds. But this time it doesn't show the RPM, like now you can hear it, rounds per minute, but percentage instead. Since the maximum is 3000 rounds per minute, 1% equals 30 RPM. The V11 Pro also comes with a removable dust filter, which helps to protect your laptop from a dust buildup. It's a nice bonus that actually might help to extend your laptop's lifespan. It's again easy to replace and located at the bottom. The USB hub here at the top is USB 2 only, meaning it won't make much sense for modern peripherals, maybe a webcam or a headset or a dongle. Not meant for data transfer or external drives really. Now let's take a look at the power consumption. At 10% or 300 RPM, the V11 Pro only draws a measly 1.6 watts from the wall, almost the same 1.8 watts at 20% or 600 RPM, 3 watts at 50% or 1500 RPM, and only 8 watts at the maximum 3000 RPM. That is really efficient and I did not expect that. The new fan design seems to be very undemanding in terms of power draw. Unfortunately, we still cannot power it via the USB-C connector. I tested the cooling performance first using my Acer Swift X14 with a 50W RTX 4050 plus an i7 13700H and a single fan system running Shadow of the Tomb Raider at high settings in 1200p using the laptop's turbo mode for maximum performance. This way the laptop is getting pretty hot and hearable. Without any cooling pad, the system hits around 84 degrees Celsius on the GPU and 87 to 92 degrees Celsius on the CPU right now in my room. Noise levels sit at 50 decibels, which is very hearable, with frame rates around 93 FPS. Now using a simple no-name stand brings the GPU temps down to 81 degrees Celsius and the CPU to around 85 to 90 degrees Celsius, which is clearly better than the same desk setup while maintaining the same 50 decibel noise level. With the Llano pad you can already see improvements, even at low fan speeds. At only 10% speed, temps are about 79 degrees Celsius on the GPU and 83 to 87 degrees Celsius on the CPU, and the noise even drops slightly to 47 decibels, since the cooler also dampens the laptop's fan noise once it's resting on it. And I already saw 3 more FPS with now 96 FPS. At 900 RPM or 30%, the temps drop further to 70 degrees Celsius for the GPU and are only 77 to 80 degrees Celsius on the CPU, while the noise is still lower than before with 48 decibel. At around 50% or around 1500 RPM, I think we are hitting some kind of sweet spot. The GPU temps now is down to 69 degrees Celsius, already 15 degrees lower than the desk setup. And CPU temps are down to 72 to 75 degrees Celsius, nearly 20 degrees Celsius lower. While the noise is basically still the same with only 1 decibel more at 51 decibel compared to the table setup, but we're already seeing 7 FPS more due to the now noticeable higher GPU clock speeds and stable CPU speeds. The laptop is clearly thermal throttling with its single fan design. Now at the full 100% at 3000 RPM, the fan noise becomes clearly noticeable at 60 decibel, but temperatures improve further. 63 degrees Celsius on the GPU and 65 to 69 degrees Celsius on the CPU with a maximum of 102 FPS. Basically 10% more speed. Clock speeds then were at around 2025 MHz for the GPU instead of the initial around 1800 MHz. And all of that with the same wattage for the GPU. That didn't even change. But as you can see, GPUs can sometimes run faster if they are cooler. That's just a fact. That's also because silicon can sometimes be more efficient if it's not running as hot. In this example, I'll just quickly show you how fast the V11 Pro cools down my laptop and how quickly the FPS are actually effective. I'll just quickly fast forward the footage and you can see the timer in the upper right corner as a reference. Now switching to a bigger 16-inch MSI Vector 16HX AI with an RTX 5070 Ti at 140W and an Intel Core Ultra 7 255H changes the picture. The laptop was set to performance mode with the fans on auto and the game was now running at 1600p with ultra settings instead. Once again, at only 20% speed for the Llano V11 Pro, we are already seeing big gains on all sides, while the noise is even 4 decibel quieter compared to the laptop on the table. That is pretty awesome. GPU temps drop slightly from 86 to 84 degrees Celsius, while the CPU already stops throttling and now maintains a stable 5 GHz, in this case at 95 to 99 degrees Celsius. GPU clocks rise modestly, but the FPS is already noticeably higher with now 124 over the initial 118 FPS. Though, in this example, higher RPMs don't give us much more performance in total, while the temps drop by a whopping 15 degrees Celsius at total, at the highest speed for the GPU and even 18 to 26 degrees Celsius for the CPU with a maximum of now 126 FPS. In a direct comparison, the older, more expensive and bigger Llano V12 Ultra is giving us slightly better FPS at 1400 RPM, while at that speed it's hitting the same noise level as the V11 Pro at full speed. And that FPS improvement most likely was due to the even cooler temperatures in comparison. Though, as mentioned earlier, at full speed, the V12 Ultra is much louder, while only giving us additional 3 FPS in the Shadow of the Tomb Raider scenario. In the end, the effectiveness depends a lot on the laptop being used and the used performance modes. It'll work great with some models and not as well with others. It kind of depends on the ventilation grid layout underneath the laptop and other factors. By the way, the Llano V11 Pro has these cutouts in all 4 corners of the foam gasket. I'm not entirely sure, I wouldn't have preferred them to be left out. On my Acer Swift X14, for example, one of these cutouts partially covers the laptop's only small hot air exhaust vent. Even on my larger MSI Vector 16HX, I don't really see any benefit having them there. They also increase the chance that the foam won't form a proper seal all the way around. That said, it's definitely a minor nitpick. For me, one of the main selling points of this slightly smaller V11 Pro definitely is the use case for smaller 14-inch laptops. And in the case of my Acer Swift X14, that just makes so much sense. One thing that did bother once more though is the fact that the foam still isn't attached to the cooler itself. If your laptop is very light, it could happen that the foam slightly lifts it up into the air, letting air escape the cooling pad without really passing through the laptop. If you want to check out the Llano V11 Pro yourself, make sure to use the discount code V11PRO ZZ08 to get 15% off via the link in the description. And that's it for today. If you enjoy the content, make sure to like the video and/or subscribe to the channel. That really helps a lot. Thank you very much. Also check out my full review of the Llano V12 Ultra laptop cooler from last year if you're interested, which also allows software control of the fan speeds. Thanks for watching until the very end. See you next time. Bye bye and tschüss.